I was crestfallen. I'd like to give Kurt a chance to ask you one question at this time. Go ahead, Kurt. So, this has been going on for 3 years? I asked. Kurt, you know I won't lie to you. Believe me when I say no. We both remained professional for the first year. We were reconnecting as friends. Then 2 years ago, we started holding hands when we went out to dinner, and then there were kisses. Finally, we spent the night together. I slumped in the couch. Bridget had noticed my change in posture and then said, "But Kurt, I love you. You are my husband. We will be together forever. So, how could you do that?" I barked out. "Every 3 months you're going off to get some strange for 3 days, then come back to your poor, clueless husband. It's not like that." She insisted. "You keep saying that. Are you trying to tell me that he hasn't been screwing you every 3 months for the last 2 years?" "No, he hasn't been screwing me. We have been sharing tender moments with each other. That's worse. Do you love him?" "Kurt, he was my first love. We had a special connection. We had promised each other that we would always be there for each other, whenever possible. So, being there for each other means letting him screw you whenever you're together. Is that it?" "Kurt, it took nothing from you. Did you not feel loved before I went to my meetings? Did we not make love like we always did? When I returned, did you not feel loved? Did we not make love those nights like we always did? How did that take anything away from you? Kurt, you know I love you. I'm there for you and the kids whenever you need me. You have to admit that. Have you ever felt that I didn't love you? That I didn't honor you? That I didn't cherish you? It was a promise I made to you on our wedding day. To love, honor, and cherish, till death do us part. I have never regretted loving you, marrying you, having kids with you, sharing my life with you. Search your heart. You know what I'm saying is true. My time while I was away, once a quarter, took absolutely nothing away from you. I have never not given you my all." I couldn't believe what she was saying. Was she justifying her cheating because I wasn't there? Therefore, it was taking nothing from me? And what about our wedding vows? What about forsake all others? I asked. "Bridget, you talk about our wedding vows. What about forsake all others? What about that promise to me in front of all our friends and family?" "Kurt, I know this will hurt you, but those words were never in our vows. Go watch the DVD. I did, 2 years ago, when I was struggling with my conflicting promises and emotions. The minister never put those words in, and no, I didn't ask him not to, so don't blame that on me. So, because the minister missed it when he was saying the vows, that justifies you committing adultery? It allowed me to fulfill my promise to Gary that I had made before I ever met you. So, in short, you are not my exclusive wife. I have to share you with someone else," I screamed. That's when the counselor stepped in. "Kurt, Bridget, we are almost done with our time for this session. I think, before anything is said that you may regret later, we should end here. I do have some homework for you both, though. I want you both to write down what you feel are aspects of a good relationship. I want you to bring them with you next week. Don't confer with one another about them. I want you each to see what the other thinks is important in any relationship." We walked out, neither one of us saying a word to the other. Needless to say, I didn't move back home that week. I did call the kids every night, though. I called them on Bridget's phone. There was no reason to make it worse than it already was by intentionally slighting her. When I spoke with her, I was cordial, but I didn't spend too much time talking to her before I asked to speak to the kids. When the next Wednesday rolled around, we were back in the counselor's office, waiting for our appointment. I had spent a lot of time on my list. I tried to be concise, so I put it in a bullet point format so it all fit on one page. Bridget had a notebook with at least 10 pages filled up. This might be a long meeting. When Mary, the counselor, came out to get us, we stood and I let her go in first. As we sat down, this time at opposite ends of the couch, Mary said, "All right, so this week I don't want to discuss the past at all. I want to discuss our thoughts. I trust each of you brought your thoughts on what makes a good relationship." We both nodded our heads. Who would like to go first? Well, Kurt seems to have the shorter list, so let's get his done first. Bridget said in a tone that I had rarely heard her use. Mary counseled her, "Bridget, Kurt's list, if I'm reading Kurt correctly, is probably a list of single words that he may have to expound on. Just because your list is probably written out in sentence form does not make his list any less important." Wow, she schooled her. Bridget was taken aback a bit, but nodded to Mary anyway. "Kurt, why don't you get us started? And if you'll allow, I'd like to be able to ask questions so we can understand what it is you're trying to convey." "Sure," I said, unfolding my sheet of paper. I started down the list. "Love," I said. "I don't mean to stop you already, Kurt, but last week Bridget asked a question that I think relates to this. Can I ask it again now?" "Sure." She asked, "Have you ever felt that I didn't love you, honor you, or cherish you? Could you answer that now? I hesitated. Well, up until 3 weeks ago, I would say never. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that she loved me. Now I have my doubts. Bridget was going to say something, but Mary cut her off by saying, "Okay, thank you for being honest. Hopefully with this counseling, we'll be able to alleviate those doubts. Next is respect." "What do you mean by that?" Mary asked. "Not cutting each other down, especially in front of other people or the kids. Understanding that I work hard to provide for our family." I looked over at Bridget and said, "As does she." "Okay, I can see where that could be important. If a person didn't respect their mate, then there would probably be bruised egos or damaged psyche. Do you think she respects you?" "Yes, she has always shown respect, except for the other day when she talked to me like I was one of the kids, demanding me to come home this instant." I looked at Bridget. She was a little red in the face. I wasn't sure if it was from embarrassment or anger. "So, throughout the over 15 years you've been together, she has almost always shown you respect?" "Yes, she has. In fact, that is one of the things I am most proud of. I've seen other wives cut their husbands down in public. It pissed me off and made me feel sorry for them." Bridget smiled when I said I was proud of her. "Okay, go on." "Commitment." Mary nodded but didn't say anything. "Patience." "What do you mean by that?" "Being willing to be patient when I don't do things either the way she would like them done or in her time frame." "Okay." "Forgiveness." That's a big one. Marriages that I see hinge on that one. Here's my question for you. Are you willing to think about trying to forgive Bridget? I know you may not be ready to forgive her now, but are you willing to think about it? I sat there in silence for a minute. Bridget was getting antsy. When I put that on my list, I knew that I would have to forgive her if we were going to survive this. I had thought long and hard about it. Now that the counselor was asking me, point blank, if I felt I could try to forgive her, I was hesitant to answer. The thing about forgiveness is that if you do forgive someone, you have to be willing to open yourself up to being hurt again. Was I willing to do that? "I can try." I stated. "That's all we can ask." She said, "Go on." "Honesty. Tell me, do you consider your wife to be an honest person?" I looked at Bridget. She was looking directly at me, wanting to know if I believed her, wanting to know if I knew that everything she has said about her loving me, about not wanting a divorce, about doing everything for me, that it was all true. Yes, she is honest. I've never known her to tell a lie. Even when I confronted her, she didn't try to lie her way out of it. You heard her last week, in fact. Sometimes she's brutally honest. Mary nodded her head. "What's next?" "Trust. We're going to come back to that one in future sessions. That one will take a long time and effort. I'm letting both of you know now, this is the big one. It may take months to get back the trust, or it may take years if you don't forgive her first." I nodded and could see out of the corner of my eye that Bridget's head was down. "Okay, what's next?" "Good communication. Do you guys talk?" To be honest, I think that is one of our strongest points. We've always been able to talk about anything. That is also why it hurts so much. She didn't talk to me about what she was thinking, about the dilemma she was having. I looked at Bridget again. Her head was still down. "Okay, we'll touch on that one later also." "What's next?" "Selflessness." "What do you mean by that?" "Being willing to do things for your spouse, even if it is not something you necessarily want to do, but it is important to her." Mary nodded again. "Okay, what's next?" "Just one more on my list." I said. "Physical intimacy." "Okay, so where were you two at with that, before all of this?" "I have no problem with that. She is always willing. I know so many other men who say their wives are stingy with it, only giving it up when they want something from the guy. It's been over 15 years, and it still feels like the honeymoon has never ended." Again, I looked at Bridget. She was red from embarrassment, but her smile couldn't be any bigger. "God, I love that smile." Mary looked at us, then she said, "Kurt, Bridget, our hour is almost up, but we are making such good progress tonight. Would you be able to stay for another session?" Bridget grabbed her phone and said, "Let me call home and let our son know we'll be about an hour later." She made the call and then Mary said, "Okay, Bridget, it's your turn. What have you got?" "First of all, let me say that I appreciate the list you made, Kurt. I'm sorry if I belittled you before about its length. I hope you'll hear my list and know that I truly do love you, and you're already fulfilling many of these." That made me feel good. I was eager to hear what she had to say. "First thing is something that you already do a great job at, saying and showing me that you love me. I've known you love me, even before you said it for the first time so many years ago." Mary nodded and smiled. "The second is understanding and forgiveness. I know that is something that we, with Mary's help, will work on. I hope you will try to forgive me." Mary spoke up and said something at that. Bridget, at the risk of destroying the progress we've made tonight, I need to ask you a question. What is it? Bridget said pensively. I know this is only our second time altogether, but there is a big elephant in the room and we need to address it right now while you're talking on that subject. Okay, Bridget said apprehensively. Understand that my objective throughout the whole process is to try to save your marriage. With that in mind, I heard you say you want understanding and forgiveness, but I have yet to hear you ask for it. Bridget, are you sorry for what you've done? Bridget bowed her head. I knew that you were going to ask that question at some point. I've been struggling with the answer. She looked up at me. Our eyes met, and I could see tears there. I'm sorry that what I did has hurt my husband and our relationship, but I'm not sorry for what I did. I was fulfilling a promise to someone that means a lot to me. I was helping him in a way that I knew how. I was filling a need that he had. He told me that he and his wife were experiencing intimacy problems, and he needed to feel the touch of a woman. I know that it hurts to hear it, but I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. I hope you can forgive me for hurting you while I helped someone else. At that I got up. She wasn't sorry she did it. She would still be doing it if I hadn't been sent that email. Hell, she might still do it anyway to fulfill her promise to help him in a way she knew how. That was a deal breaker for me. I need a promise from her that it will never happen again. I looked over at the counselor. She could see that I was on the verge of blowing up. So she said, let's stop there. The feelings are too raw to continue. I think she was surprised at what my wife said. That sounds good to me. I said harshly, Bridget, would you be willing to stay a bit longer so we can discuss this one-on-one? Yes, she said as she started crying. Kurt, could I see you in a one-on-one session sometime before next Wednesday? Sure, I'll call you to make an appointment, I said as I walked out the door. Well, I wouldn't be moving back home this week either. I was starting to doubt that I ever would. The next day at work, everyone pretty much stayed out of my way. I hated bringing my problems to work, but I couldn't get what she had said out of my head. That night, sitting on the motel bed, I opened my laptop. I logged into Facebook. Elizabeth Jones had accepted my friend request. I sent her a private message asking her to call me, giving her my phone number. I didn't know how often she checked her Facebook, or if she had notifications on her phone, so I would wait until she called. Within minutes I got a text reply. She was just sitting down to dinner, but would call after dinner. Oh yeah, she's 2 hours behind us, I thought. Okay, I would wait. About an hour and a half later I got a call. Hello? I said, hi, this is Liz. You asked me to call? Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you. Maybe fill in some gaps that I have and hopefully fill in some gaps you may have. Okay, she said hesitantly. I don't know how much you know, so I'll just let you know what I know. I went through everything I knew, and that Bridget had said Gary needed her because of intimacy problems that they were having in the bedroom. Problems in the bedroom? The only problem we have is that all he ever wants is a wham bam thank you, ma'am, and he hardly ever wants that. Not enough for me at least. We do it maybe once every 2 weeks because he is either too tired or not in the mood. I was beginning to wonder if he had a medical condition. Then I got those pictures. I was furious. I told him he was going to have to quit that job, ASAP, if he has any hope of saving our marriage. In light of what you just told me, I still might divorce him. He's lucky I didn't throw him out of the house when I got that email. She was a spitfire. So, Gary had been lying to my wife. If they were as close as what Bridget's mom described, he would know of her need to always fulfill her promises. He took advantage of that. Somehow, I needed to let Bridget know the truth about her ex-boyfriend. Liz, could I ask a favor of you? What is it? Then I'll let you know. Bridget and I are going through counseling. I don't know right now if there is any hope for us, but when I decide that it might be possible, could I get you to call me when we are at the counselor's office? I want Bridget to hear from your own mouth what you just told me. It may be enough to make her see the light when it comes to their relationship. Sure, I can do that. When do you have counseling? Wednesday nights, unfortunately dinner time for you. I'll order pizza and have it delivered that night. That way I won't have to worry about fixing anything. I really appreciate it. It may be a couple weeks yet. We have some big hurdles to get over before I feel we're on the road to recovery. Well, I'll wait for your call, or let me know through Facebook. We hung up and I thought about what I had just learned. This was going to destroy Bridget's relationship with her ex-boyfriend, but it would go a long way to saving ours. Saving our marriage, however, hinged on her willingness to see that what she had done had destroyed my faith in our relationship. If a promise made to someone 20 years ago held more importance than our marriage, then I would rather take my chances with a new wife. One that may not be as ideal as she is, but one that I could trust. Someone that wouldn't have the mindset that it didn't take anything away from you when I was with him. The phone call gave me hope though. Finally, a way out of this mess. Would hearing what Liz had said be the come to Jesus moment for Bridget? Would she finally see the light? I was thinking about what I had wanted to learn by going to the counseling sessions. Already, only 2 weeks and I had almost everything I wanted. 1. Why? Because her ex was a scumbag and used her good nature against her. 2. How long? 2 years, every 3 months for 3 days. I'm sure it was at least twice a day. So 6 times every quarter, 4 times a year, that's 24 times. For 2 years, 48 times. Now I knew. Could I get over it? 3. Does she still love him? She won't after she hears what he did to her. She despises people who lie for personal gain. 4. Does she still love me? Yes, I know she does, and that also answers number 5. 6. Does she want to end up with him? No, especially after she finds out he's willing to lie to her to get her to sleep with him. So, the only one that is still going to take some work is number 7. How do I ever trust her again? I'm sure the counselor will have some insight into that. It might not happen overnight, but I knew, with time, I would trust her again. Maybe not the unquestionable 100% trust one had before, but trust nonetheless. On Monday, I left work early at 4 o'clock to go to an appointment with the counselor. Kurt, can I ask you a question? Sure. I've never seen this in all my years of counseling. Bridget has a very strong need to fulfill all her promises. Has she always been that way? As long as I've known her. I worry about that. Someone like that could put themselves in grave danger just to fulfill a promise. Have you ever known someone to break a promise they made to her? She asked. I didn't have to think about it. Yes, her college roommate. They were best friends. What happened? It was our senior year. Gina was her best friend. They had made arrangements to go to Cancun for spring break. They planned it since September. Bridget had bought the plane tickets and made all the reservations. Everything was all set. In January, Gina met a guy that she really liked. By March, she was head over heels, and when he told her that he wanted to go skiing in Vail, she said yes immediately. When she came home to their apartment and told Bridget, 3 weeks before spring break, that she wasn't going to Cancun, Bridget flipped. She disowned her best friend, and they haven't spoken since. We ended up going to Cancun together, so it wasn't a total waste, but she never forgave her. That sounds about what I would have expected. Someone close to her must have reneged on a promise to her, and it has affected her adversely ever since. The doctor said. Then I said, that fact may actually work in my favor in this situation. How do you mean? She asked. I'll let you know once we get the bigger problem solved. By bigger problem, what do you mean? How can I get her to see that what she did was wrong? I don't know that you ever will, Kurt. In her mind, she wasn't taking anything from you when she was fulfilling her promise. You weren't there, so she wasn't taking away time spent with you. Also, you weren't there, so she wasn't taking away any love from you. In her mind, she still loved you. Actually still loves you with all her heart. Doing what she did took none of that away from you. So, I go through the rest of my life wondering if she has other promises out there that will allow her to stray? I asked. That would be a good question for her. Are there any other promises to anyone that would cause her to betray your trust again? If she thinks about it and can't come up with any, then ask her to promise not to betray you like that again. This was a lot to think about. I didn't know Bridget's attitude toward promises, but is that an excuse to cheat? The doctor saw me thinking and said, can I put it in another perspective for you? Sure, I said. Anything to try to understand it. Let's say you knew someone that needed a blood transfusion and they had a rare type of blood. You also had this same rare type of blood. Would you be willing to give them some of your blood knowing your body will produce more and you'll be fine? Sure. Well, that's how Bridget looked at it. She was giving something that she had that he needed, and she would be fine afterwards. It wouldn't affect her adversely. Now my head was spinning. I couldn't wrap my head around it all. She did seem to have some good insight into Bridget's thought process, though. Was that going to be enough for me? Could I give her a pass because of her mindset? Knowing she loved me and I loved her, would that be enough? Part of me wanted to say yes, but another part wanted her to pay for her betrayal of our marriage. Damn, why can't life be easy? I left her office more confused than when I came in, but I also had some insight that I would never have come to on my own. So, do I look at her issues as a mental disability? If it were, it sure would make it easier to process and even easier to forgive her. I sure had a lot to think about. Mary and I talked about Bridget's other personality traits. I know that Mary probably had some qualms against talking about Bridget and things discussed in a private session, but her main objective was to save our marriage. Any insight she could give each of us to make it easier to reconcile would help meet that objective. I told her that Bridget's attitude toward honesty had always been a blessing, giving me confidence that my wife was being true to me as she made her rounds as an area representative. I knew she was mine and mine alone. I told Mary, I know that sounds caveman, but it's not, because just as she was mine, I was hers. I'm not the best looking guy in the world, but some women are looking for security, and I have a solid job and I treat people with respect. I've been flirted with and even propositioned, but I always stood firm, knowing that for both Bridget and I, there was no one else. Now that is in question. I'm not sure if I can trust her to continue in this job. I understand, Kurt, and we'll work on trust. Let's get you two back together first. As I sat there, I thought about the call from Liz. Hey doc, I think I may have a way to help with that. How is that? I told her what Liz and I would like to do. I told her that this would help Bridget know that making promises can land her alone and betrayed. She agreed to it, and I told her I'd call her the next day to confirm that Liz would be able to make the call. When I got to the motel, I powered up my laptop and sent a Facebook message to Liz to call me when she had a chance. At 10 o'clock, I got a call from her. Hello, Kurt. I had already planned on calling you tonight when I got your message on Facebook. Thank you for calling, Elizabeth. Liz, please. Okay, Liz, what were you going to call me about? I wondered if this Wednesday would be the day to call. Also, I thought of a way that maybe we can help out both of our situations. Okay, whatever I can do, I will. We discussed her idea and it sounded like if it worked, it would possibly be a relationship killer, at least for Bridget and Gary. I truly hoped it worked. I also told her of the counselor's observations, and I could actually hear sympathy in her voice when she said, well, I hope you two can work it out. I actually hoped so too. I kept thinking about what the owner of my company said. I wondered if I did divorce her, would I always be looking for a replacement just like her? At work, I was able to compartmentalize my personal life to where it was not affecting it as much, but I definitely wasn't my usual self. Wednesday night, I was at the counselor's office at 7:15. I was nervous as a guy on prom night. I truly hoped the plan worked. At 7:25, Bridget walked in. I could tell she had gone the extra mile to look appropriately nice for our meeting. I was sitting on the love seat, and she sat down on the love seat also. Sure, there was a gap between us, but we were sitting next to each other. Kurt, she asked, can you come back home? The kids are starting to get out of control. I think they are starting to doubt the conference explanation. They just want you home. In order for her to know just how tenuous the situation was, I said, after last Wednesday's revelation, I don't know if I'm ever coming back. I paused, looked at her and said unemotionally, we'll see how tonight goes. Kurt, don't talk like that. She said, you know I love you. If I knew that we wouldn't be here. I had hoped that tonight could be a watershed moment. We would see. At that point, Mary came out and got us from the waiting room. She could tell that we were both nervous, but for different reasons. When we sat on the couch, at opposite ends again, Mary started talking to us. Bridget, Kurt, from our individual meetings, I can tell that you both love each other greatly, but love isn't enough. Bridget, Kurt needs to be able to trust you. Right now, in his mind, he can't trust you, at least not where Gary is concerned. And I dare say probably not where anyone is concerned, at least not right now. In his mind, he's wondering what other promise lurks out there waiting to destroy your marriage forever. Kurt, Bridget needs to get understanding and forgiveness from you. If you can't forgive her, then there is no point in continuing. What she needs is to know that you're willing to try, that you can see a time when you can forgive her. Believe me, she knows she has hurt you. We both looked at each other. We didn't know what to say. Bridget, we never got through your list last week. She looked at me before he left. What I'd like is for you to continue, but be open to what Kurt may say or do tonight to try to get more understanding. Bridget hesitated and said, okay, well, I think the next thing on my list is, like on Kurt's list, communication. By that I mean real communication, not just how was your day, but thoughts about his hopes, dreams, goals, and fears. Let me share in those, and you share in mine too. We communicate well, but I feel like we need more, especially now. That way we can better understand each other. Right then my phone rang. Bridget looked at me with a perturbed expression on her face. I held up my finger and answered the phone, putting it immediately on speaker but muting our side so that any sound we made wouldn't go through. Kurt, what are you doing? We're in a meeting. Bridget said angrily. Would you please listen, and maybe it will help us? I said. She looked confused. Then we heard a voice over the phone. Gary, I got the kids pizza tonight because we need to talk. I need you to tell me again what happened and why I shouldn't just throw you out. I've spoken to a lawyer. She assures me that I would undoubtedly get the kids and be able to stay in the house while you pay all the expenses. I want you to be truthful with me. If I find out you haven't been truthful, then I will file for divorce. Bridget looked over at me. She had a deer caught in headlights look on her face. Like I told you, her name is Bridget. She was my high school sweetheart. So how is it that you were kissing and groping her in a hotel hallway? Well, after our last class reunion, someone from the committee sent everyone that couldn't attend a registry of all our classmates with their married names included. So I looked her up on Facebook and we started chatting back and forth. He said. So far, what he had said was just what Bridget had told me. Their stories weren't in conflict yet. Then Liz accused, so, you told her you were going to be in Chicago and she met you there last month? Gary shot back, no. About 3 years ago, she told me that the company she worked for was looking to expand into Colorado and they were looking for area reps like her. So that is why you took the job? So you could sleep with your old girlfriend? Liz asked. No, she begged me to apply, telling me that we would be able to see each other every 3 months for 3 days. At this point, I looked over at Bridget. She was just staring at the phone. Liz continued, so she told you that if you took the job, you could sleep with her every 3 months? Not in those exact words, but she did imply that. He said. I looked at Bridget. She was still staring at the phone, but was shaking her head no. So, you've been screwing her every 3 months for the past 3 years? Liz accused. No, I swear. I kept fending her off every time. But then 6 months ago she cornered me. She told me that, unless I slept with her, she would tell you that we've been having an affair the whole time I've worked there. I didn't want to do it. I told her that I loved you, and that she should look to one of the other unmarried reps to have an affair with. Honey, you have to believe me. I didn't want to do it. I have no feelings for her. That's why I broke it off while we were in college. Now I just wish she would let me be and let me do my job when I'm at those meetings. She was possessive when I was with her, always jealous of any girl that said hi to me as I walked down the hall. I tell you, she's nuts and should be seeing a psychiatrist. I was actually scared she might hurt me as well as ruin our marriage. I wish we could confront her, but she would just lie and probably say I was the one that pursued her. You've got to believe me, you can't trust her. I'm glad that I'm looking for another job, so I never have to see her again. I can't take it anymore. I was watching Bridget this whole time. Her expression went from disbelief to confusion and then to anger. In fact, she started yelling at the phone. You liar. You son of a witch. Tell the truth. You a-hole. I picked up my phone and ended the call. I looked at Bridget and her face was in her hands. She was crying. I know it sounds mean, but I had to know. I said, are you crying because he lied? Or because he told the truth? She continued crying for a bit and then said, I'm crying because I have wrecked our marriage, possibly forever, over a piece of shit that I once cared for. How could he say those things? Kurt, you have to believe me. I never begged him to come work there. Also, I definitely didn't say, imply, or even hint that I wanted to have sex with him. Then she looked at me, straight into my eye. Kurt, you know I have never lied to you. I'm telling you now that I did none of those things. I stalled his advances until he told me that he wasn't getting any intimacy from his wife. You've got to believe me. I struggled with the decision, but I had promised him. It was only to comfort him, and only during the quarterly meeting times. Kurt, it wasn't taking anything away from you. I had no thoughts of us getting back together. I love you, Kurt. You have to believe me. She pleaded. She was desperately trying to assure me while she dealt with the betrayal of a person she thought cared about her, at least in some way. How much of what he said was real? How much was just his impressions of the event? How much was him lying to cover his butt? Unless my wife has been playing a game ever since I met her. I had to believe that her trait of being honest was not an act. I could believe her. I knew that in her mind she was helping a person whom she loved in a small way, and also was fulfilling her other character trait of keeping her promises. So where do we go from here, Bridget? I asked. Kurt, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that I took your love for granted. I'm sorry that I put my past promise ahead of our marriage. So what if he comes back and is divorced, needing comfort again? He can go to hell for all I care. Kurt, can you forgive me? I'm so sorry for hurting you. From now on you come first in front of everything, even the kids. Of course, they will be a close second. She said the last bit smiling at me. She knew the kids were the most important things in our lives. We both knew that. Mary, who had been silent throughout the whole exchange, and addressed me. Kurt, so what do you think? Can you forgive her? Can you trust her? Is there anything else that you need to make you trust her again? I had thought about this a lot. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I turned to Bridget. I need to be able to trust you. I love you, Kurt, she announced. I continued, first, I want you to go to our family doctor and ask for an STD test. If she asks why, tell her the truth. Bridget looked at me. I could see the shock on her face at what I was asking. I was asking her to confess to a woman that she had known since before she had gotten her first period, a person that had answered all of the female questions she was too embarrassed to ask her own mother, a person that probably felt more like a grandmother to her than a doctor. She looked deeply into my eyes, she had tears in her eyes, and nodded her head. Second, I need you to promise that you will never see him again, ever. She thought about it for a minute and said, Kurt, I can't promise that. I started to get up, I was going to leave. No, Kurt, wait. I can't promise that because his family still lives in this town. I'm sure there will be times when he comes home to see them. I might accidentally run into him at the grocery or something. I thought about it. Okay, I can see that. All right, how about not going anywhere where you know he'll be? She thought some more. Kurt, there will be class reunions and, God forbid, funerals for friends and classmates. I don't think that is possible. How about if I don't go anywhere I think he might be without you? No funerals, no reunions. I thought about it. It was just like Bridget to think things through before she promised, even more now. Okay, I accept that. I said to her, one more thing, in order for me to trust you, I want you to quit your job. Kurt, Mary said, can I interject? I looked at her. I didn't know what she was thinking, but I nodded. Do you have a dog? I looked at her, confused as to why she was asking such a strange question. Yes. Is it an indoor or an outdoor dog? She's mainly an indoor dog, but of course we let her out occasionally. So, you just let her out to roam? No, into our backyard. Is the backyard fenced? Yeah. What does this have to do with anything? Humor me. Why is your backyard fenced? So, she doesn't run away. I said. So, you don't trust her to stay around. So, in actuality, you trust the fence to keep her at home. I nodded slowly. Demanding her to quit her job is saying you don't trust her not to run away. I sighed. Yeah, I guess it was. Yes, as of now I trust her as much as I trust my dog. But if she has to keep her job, then I'm going with her to Chicago for her meetings. So, now you want to put a leash on her, just like your dog? I slumped. I knew I had to decide whether to take the chance. What kind of a relationship would we have if I had to have my eyes on her 24/7? Or track her whereabouts with her phone? Or hire a PI to follow her? As of now, she has not done anything that gives me that confidence that she will not cheat on me again. I said with a calm voice. Kurt, I love you. Ever since I met you, I knew. I will love you forever. Please, let's get past this. Don't give up on us. She was pleading, tears in her eyes. Damn it. I hated her for what she had done to us, but I knew I loved her also. My boss's words started running through my mind. Don't give up on your marriage just to turn around and try to find someone just like her. So, I didn't give up. That night I went back to the motel to grab my stuff, not to stay. I went back home for good. We continued to go to the counselor. She worked with me on my trust issues. She worked with Bridget on boundaries and being able to make good choices, even if those involved promises made. She also worked with both of us to strengthen our relationship. I halted the divorce. I had decided that I was going to give it a try. Over the next few weeks, we talked more than we had in years. In the counseling sessions, I learned of the other things on Bridget's relationship list. There were a lot of similar ones to mine, but two that I hadn't thought of. One was showing affection, both verbally and physically, but not just in the bedroom. The other was quality time, date nights, of course, but also when we were together in a room we were together, a physical and emotional bond. That night, when I came back from the motel, Bridget was waiting for me in a sexy negligee. Of course I was horny. It had been weeks and my hand just wasn't cutting it. However, when I pulled out the box of condoms, she about tore my head off. I told her, it's either these or we wait until you get the test results back. You choose. Thankfully, she said yes. A week later, the results came back negative, and we made love for a marathon session that night. We soon were back to 5 times a week, and between our effort and the counseling sessions, we strengthened our marriage. Bridget did end up quitting her job, but not right away. At the next quarterly meeting, Gary was not there. He had indeed quit. Liz, even though she knew he had lied that night, was giving him another chance. She had him on a very short leash. Because Gary was not there, some of the other area reps and even some of the office personnel were hitting on her. They figured she was open to it because of what she had going on with Gary. She told me about it when she came back. I told her she should talk to human resources. She said that she couldn't because she was sure it was a human resources person who had sent me the email. If she tried to go for sexual harassment, the affair would be brought up, and she didn't want that following her. She quit shortly after, getting a job as a sales rep for a local company. Going forward, we continued to work on our relationship. There were times when I would get melancholy, thinking about what had occurred. When she noticed these times, Bridget would say something to the effect of, "Kurt, you always had my love. It didn't take anything away from you." As time went by, the melancholy times became fewer and fewer and farther apart. Our life had returned to normal. I loved her and the kids, and I knew she loved me also. It would be great to be able to end the story right there. However, about 8 or 9 years after the event that almost destroyed my marriage, things started to change. Bridget and I were in our late 40s now, and as will happen over time, our lovemaking frequency had dwindled. A lot of that was due to the onset of menopause. Bridget just didn't have the drive that she had had for so long in our marriage. At first, I was worried that maybe, just maybe, she was cheating on me again. You know what they say, once a cheater, always a cheater. I started investigating, checking her phone for unknown calls or texts, watching her times leaving and coming home from work, watching to see if her wardrobe was getting sexier. You know the drill. I even went as far as to put a locator app on her phone. There was nothing. I found nothing. So one day I asked her, "Bridget, is everything okay?" "What do you mean?" she asked. "Between us?" "Yes, Kurt, I love you now, just like I have always loved you." "Why?" "Well, we just seem to not be connecting like we used to." She looked at me. I swear the woman could read my mind. "This is about sex, isn't it?" I hemmed and hawed and finally said, "Yes, we used to do it all the time. Now I'm lucky if we do it once a week." "Kurt, you know we're not 20 anymore. My body is going through changes. I just don't have the desire like I used to." There it was, the dreaded change. My life would never be the same. We talked about it, and while I wasn't happy, I had to acquiesce to not pressuring her, and she promised me every Saturday night, unless one of us was sick. The times we did it became more obligatory than orgasmic. Our life moved into more of a routine. We would work during the day and watch TV at night. Saturday night became date night, and I would get that obligatory sex. When the football season started, we made a deal. We would watch her reality shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and watch my football on Monday and Thursday. That worked until one Thursday there was a reality show on that she just had to watch. "Kurt, can I watch my reality show?" "Honey," I said, "you know that Thursday is football night?" "Yeah, but this is a special night. Please," she pleaded. I sighed. "Okay, you can watch it. I'll just go down to Bear Creek and watch the game there," I said, not wanting to argue with her. Bear Creek is a sports bar in town. So, I started spending Thursday nights at the sports bar. One Thursday night the game was a blowout, so I started watching hockey. I was really getting into it and the Predators were doing great. That next week, on Monday night, I was sitting down to watch the game when Bridget came in and said, "Can we watch my shows?" "It's Monday night, football night. Wouldn't it be better to watch at the bar with the other fans?" she asked. "So you would rather prefer that I watch at the bar than be here watching with you? You'd enjoy it more, and that way I could watch more of my shows." She was right. I would enjoy it more. While I enjoyed spending time with Bridget, she wasn't really into football. So I got up, kissed her goodbye, and went back to Bear Creek. I sat splitting my time between the football game and the hockey game. When Thursday came, I didn't even bother sitting down to watch the game. Around 8 o'clock, I said, "I'm going to go down to Bear Creek and grab a beer and watch the games." She said, "Okay, have a good time." I think she was happy that I wasn't going to be around pestering her, making her watch football. One Monday, I was watching and I heard a familiar voice say, "Hey, Kurt, it's nice to see someone I know hang out here. Can I watch the game with you?" "Sure, have a seat." It was Terry from work. We talked as we watched the games. That night, when I went home, Bridget asked me how watching the game went. Good. In fact, Terry from work saw me watching and came over and watched with me. We talked, booed the refs, and cheered on our team. It was a good time. "That's great that you had someone to watch the games with," she said. We started watching the games together every Monday and Thursday nights. So that became our new routine. I would come home, eat dinner, watch TV, and on Mondays and Thursdays around 8 o'clock I'd say, "I'm going to grab a beer and watch the games." In June, our company had its 30th anniversary party. We hadn't had a party since our 20th, so there were a lot of new faces, so we all had name tags on. It wasn't a fancy affair, but we were having hors d'oeuvres and wine, as well as dancing. I was now the director of operations, so I was mingling with all the employees and their families. That is where this story came in. I was grabbing a glass of wine and a drink for Bridget and I when I turned around and saw my wife talking to Terry. I made a beeline to where they were standing. As I was approaching, I heard my wife, looking at Terry's name tag, say, "Teresa, how do you pronounce your last name? Most people call me Terry, and it's Abier, like, I'm going to grab a beer." Bridget turned and saw me, that's when she hauled off and slapped me hard. For months later, sitting in Mary's office, I was going through it again, for like the 8th time. Terry and I started watching the games together at Bear Creek, every Monday and Thursday. After a few weeks, Terry said, "Why are we sitting here paying high prices for this beer? Thursday, why don't you grab a 6-pack and we watch the game at my place?" Terry's daughter had left for college that August, and the reason she was going to Bear Creek was she was lonely sitting in her house all by herself. She lost her husband 5 years ago in a car accident and had spent all of her non-working time raising her daughter through her teen years. One of the things she missed about her husband was spending time with him watching sports. They both enjoyed it. She felt if she was watching the games at the bar with other people, it would take away her loneliness. Then she saw me, someone she knew, and we started watching the games together. So she was out at a bar looking for a piece. Bridget stated. No, she just wanted someone to talk to and watch the games with. Well, we started watching the games at her house. No, we didn't start having sex right away. About a month after we started watching the games at her place, she came out of the bathroom and said, "Kurt, can I ask a favor?" At the time I thought maybe her toilet was plugged, or her sink was clogged and needed me to fix it. So I said, "Sure. Is your toilet plugged?" "No, this is a bigger favor." She said, well, she had just needed a new transmission in her car, so I thought maybe she needed some cash to make the ends meet. I said to her, "Sure, if it is something that I can do, I will." Then she told me of her loneliness and that she had foregone any relationships while her daughter needed her through the teen years. What she wanted was to feel human touch again. No strings attached, no commitment, no expectations, just human touch. Bridget, you know I love you. It took nothing away from you. I was just helping her. It was something that I could do to help her. Search your heart, you know I love you. Have always loved you since I first laid eyes on you. You know I love you, and the kids more than anything in life. You have to know that. I'm sorry that I've hurt you. I have never not given you my all. Other than those few months we had those problems, have you ever felt that I didn't love you? After all the problems we went through, you chose to turn around and cheat on me? How could you? Bridget asked. Bridget, it took nothing from you. I repeated, you cheated on me for 6 months. She accused. It was 2 times a week, for 6 months. Figure that out. Twice a week times 4 times a month times 6 months. That's about 48 times. You spent 2 years, twice a day, I bet, times 3 days times 4 times a year for 2 years. That's about 48 times. I replied, accusing her. Seems we are now even. So that's why you did it, to get back at me? I thought we had worked through that. I thought you had forgiven me. No, my love, just like you. I was trying to help someone in a way that I knew I could. Your justifications came back to me. I was helping her, and it took nothing away from you. I was always there for you. The time I spent away from you, at your insistence, took nothing away from you. Then Mary cut in, Bridget, Kurt, we've been through this many times in the last few months. What we need to do now is move past this. You've done it before. I know you can do it again. You two love each other. That is evident in the fact that you haven't given up. Kurt, I need you to understand that you are sorry to Bridget for cheating on her. And Bridget, you likewise have to understand that you're sorry for cheating on Kurt. You two, both of you, have said you're sorry for hurting each other, but not for actually doing what you've done. Until you both are sorry and understand that what you did was wrong, not just the hurt caused by it, you will never get past this. I have some homework for you. I want you each to go home, and sometime this week you are to do something to show your love for the other. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture, but it needs to show the depth of your love. We left the office together. Our relationship was strained. We both knew we loved each other, but the hurt was still there. That week I showed Bridget my love for her by sending her roses every day, and Friday I brought her a diamond tennis bracelet. Of course, she loved it all, and she even showed her appreciation by cooking my favorites and showing me affection in a non-sexual way every night. Then on Saturday night, when I walked into the bedroom, I noticed a new decoration on the wall above our bed. I don't know where she got it, probably Amazon, or Pinterest, or maybe Etsy, but it looked nice and expressed her love. That night we made love like we hadn't in years. After an evening of good lovemaking, you'd think I would have slept like a baby. However, it was a fitful sleep. Something was bothering me. In a dream, I saw a plaque on a wall that read, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." In the morning, I woke and looked up at the decoration on the wall. It was a plaque that had a quote from our wedding's vows. It read, "To love, honor, and cherish, till death do us part." I think Monday I am going to cancel my life insurance. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.